It's somewhere between 2 and 4 in the morning. The room is dark, the house is quiet, everyone else is asleep, and your brain will not stop. It isn't thinking about tomorrow. It isn't planning anything useful. It's thinking about 3 years ago, about something you said in a room full of people that nobody probably even noticed, about a conversation that ended badly and still hasn't been resolved, about something you should have done differently when the window was still open. You've told yourself to stop, repeatedly. You've reasoned with it. It doesn't matter. It was years ago. There's nothing you can do about it now. It keeps going anyway. Most people assume something has gone wrong. Insomnia, anxiety, a mind that can't switch off. We pathologize it, we reach for our phones, or we lie there frustrated, treating the whole thing as a malfunction to be managed. But here's what's fascinating. What's happening at 3 a.m. isn't a malfunction. It's something your brain was specifically built to do, something that has been running every night for hundreds of thousands of years. And the reason why changes everything about how you understand the thoughts that haunt you. Let's start with an assumption so deeply embedded that almost nobody questions it. The assumption that humans are supposed to sleep in one continuous block. 8 hours, lights out, alarm. One long, uninterrupted stretch. If you wake up in the middle of the night and can't fall back asleep, the assumption is that something is broken. Physiologically, psychologically, something needs fixing. That assumption has an expiration date. And it expired roughly 200 years ago. In 2001, a historian named Roger Kirch at Virginia Tech published a paper that took him 16 years to research. He hadn't set out to study sleep at all. He'd been researching attitudes toward the night in pre-industrial Europe, but he kept finding the same phrase. In prayer books from the 1400s, court documents from the 1500s, personal letters, diaries, medical texts, passages in ancient Greek literature going back to Homer, century after century, culture after culture. The same reference appearing again and again, and every single one of them described the same thing. Before the Industrial Revolution, before gas lamps, before candles became cheap, before Edison, humans did not sleep the way we sleep now. They went to bed shortly after sunset. They slept for roughly 4 hours. Then they woke up. Not because something was wrong, because that was the pattern. The natural, universal, entirely unremarkable pattern. They called it first sleep and second sleep. Between the two, there was a window, typically 1 to 2 hours, of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night. They even had a name for it, the watch. And people didn't lie there fighting it. They used it. They read by candlelight. They prayed. They talked quietly to whoever was beside them. They reflected on their dreams, while the images were still fresh and vivid. A 16th century French physician recommended the watch as the ideal time for conception, because the body, he argued, was in a state of unusual calm and physiological readiness. A doctor's manual from the same period advised patients that the hours between first and second sleep were the best time for serious study, for working through difficult problems, for the kind of clear, unhurried thought that the noise of the day made impossible. This wasn't unusual. It wasn't a minority behavior. This was just what sleep looked like for every human being on Earth before the modern era. Waking up at 3 a.m. wasn't insomnia, it was Tuesday. But here's the question Kirch's discovery immediately raised. If segmented sleep was the human norm for hundreds of thousands of years, what happened to it? Is it gone, bred out of us by the industrial age? Or is it still there, sitting somewhere inside the modern brain waiting for the right conditions to emerge? Because when scientists went looking, they found it. Intact. Waiting. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health ran an experiment that confirmed what history had been quietly recording for centuries. He took volunteers and removed all artificial light from their lives. For 4 weeks, they experienced 14 hours of darkness every night, something closer to what our ancestors lived with before fire extended the evening and electricity erased the night entirely. He didn't tell them how to sleep. He didn't suggest any particular pattern. Within weeks, every single participant settled into the same rhythm. Without exception, without instruction, 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, 4 more hours of sleep. The pattern didn't need to be taught because it was already there. 300,000 years of programming, sitting dormant beneath the surface of the modern mind. waiting for the right conditions to reassert itself. But what Ver measured during the wakefulness period is the part that changes everything. During that middle-of-the-night window, Ver measured his participants' hormone levels. And he found something that nobody expected. Their brains were producing elevated levels of prolactin. Prolactin isn't a wakefulness hormone. It isn't a stress hormone. It isn't something associated with alertness or agitation. It's a hormone associated with states of unusual, interior calm. The kind of calm that isn't simply the absence of stress. It's something more specific, more attentive, more reflective. Ver's participants described the experience using almost identical words. Peaceful, reflective, almost meditative. A quality of awareness that felt different from both sleep and ordinary waking, like a third state entirely, not a gap in rest. A distinct state of consciousness, one that existed inside every human night for hundreds of thousands of years, before artificial light compressed our sleep into a single block and eliminated the window entirely. Think about that lineage. Every human being who ever lived across the entire span of our existence moved through this state every night, as naturally as dreaming, as expected as sunrise. It was normal. Then, within 2 or 3 generations, we traded it for a light bulb. And here's what that means for the thoughts you experience in the dark. The default mode network, the brain system for rest and self-reflection, runs at full capacity during this window. This is the network responsible for processing social information, consolidating emotional experience, and working through unresolved situations that carry emotional weight. The thoughts that come at 3 a.m. aren't random. Your brain is selecting them. Research on the default mode network has found something that maps onto what you experience in the dark at 3 a.m. The network doesn't pull up random memories. It doesn't surface pleasant experiences. It doesn't replay completed events. It prioritizes unresolved social information, specifically and consistently. The moments where your social position felt threatened, where something was left unresolved, where you acted in a way that contradicts the version of yourself you'd prefer to be. That embarrassing moment from 3 years ago keeps coming back not because your brain is punishing you. It keeps coming back because your brain classified it as unfinished. A social situation that was never fully processed. A potential threat that was never fully neutralized. A piece of data that's still marked as requiring attention. And so every time the maintenance window opens, every night, in the dark, in the quiet, the brain comes back to it, doing exactly what it was built to do. Your brain at 3 a.m. is doing maintenance on the social information that matters most to your survival as a social creature. So let's reframe what 3 a.m. actually is. Not a disorder, not your brain working against you, not a failure of sleep hygiene or emotional regulation. An ancient biological window, one that existed in every human night for hundreds of thousands of years, in which your brain enters a distinct state of reflective consciousness and uses it to process what the noise and demands of the day didn't leave room for. The reason it surfaces at 3 a.m. specifically, that's when external demands are at their lowest and your brain can finally allocate the full resources. The reason it targets the uncomfortable memories, those are the files still marked as open, the ones the system hasn't been able to close. The reason it feels relentless, you've been taught to fight it, to treat it as malfunction, to override a process that runs on 300,000 years of evolutionary programming with the logic that you need to be asleep right now. Think about how many humans lay awake in exactly this state, across exactly this span of time. Our ancestors around fires in the dark, in the long hours after first sleep. Families in medieval Europe in the quiet between their 2 sleeps. Every ordinary person across history who woke in the middle of the night and lay there in the silence, thinking about what mattered. None of them assumed something was wrong. None of them reached for their phone. None of them felt the particular modern guilt of wasted rest. They simply lived inside the window. You are not broken. You are running very old software in a world that was built to make it feel like a bug. So here's what this leaves you with. The thoughts that come at 3 a.m., the ones you've been calling anxiety, the ones you've been spending energy trying to silence, may be the most honest thinking your brain does all day. No performance, no audience, no version of yourself to maintain. Just the default mode network doing what it evolved to do. Processing the things that actually matter. The unfinished conversations, the unresolved moments, the version of yourself that keeps returning because it hasn't been fully reckoned with yet. For hundreds of thousands of years, this was just what the night was for. Which means one of 2 things. Either you've been fighting the most important cognitive process your brain runs, interrupting every night what 300,000 years of evolution built to happen in the dark, and treating the symptom as the disease. Or the thoughts that surface in the dark are just noise, a misfiring system in a world it wasn't built for, random, meaningless, best ignored. Next time it happens, don't fight it. Just lie there in the dark, the way your ancestors did, and listen to what it's trying to tell you.